Hey Maxim, thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I was just telling you, I've really been learning a lot about your company with Alteriver and what you guys offer. So looking forward to hearing all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to having a discussion and seeing what we can learn.
Well, it seems like there is a lot to learn, and I just to kind of share a little bit. I've been in oil and gas for a very long time. Not so much with the upstream. I was more midstream most of my field career, but as I've done the podcast and I've talked to different people, I've learned more about drilling and the integrity of the well and things like that, and getting into more nuanced areas like testing and like just everything that revolves around the actual drilling process. So when I started looking at Alta River and what you offer, it really kind of is aligned with that. It's the kind of getting into more of the integrity of the production.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So I mean, somewhat different. I've been in the upstream pretty much my whole life, so a little more narrow focus there. But yeah, with Alta River now that we sort of focus on production and well integrity, that whole sort of focus on keeping things ticking over for as long as possible and sort of bringing value for money to operators. That's what we focus on these days.
Yeah, when I started like digging in and learning a little bit more about it, I've also noticed that there's a trend there, like the problems that arise and the build like paraffin corrosion things that build up like that is that an ongoing problem or is that just kind of like part of the process of drilling for oil?
I mean, I think it's something that you can never fully solve, right?
Okay.
But we do our best. We do our best, and certainly throughout production cycle, uh, the the potential for corrosion exists, and oftentimes it just gets worse with time, right? And one of the things that we at Alter River do is we have a suite of different products that depend on how extreme your problems are, and a lot of it is unique to us as well. So it's something that's allowed us to. Um, have applications that didn't exist before, if you will.
And that over time, is that something that operators have been seeking out, or there's been a great need for it? Is with all the buildup and the corrosion, can that like completely stop production, or they just kind of fight through it?
It's certainly never good to have to go and work over your wells, right? So what we tend to do is we tend to try and optimize the protection on those downhole tubulars on tubing for the specific well conditions, right? So we've got 20 plus years of experience behind us, so a lot of the time we can have a look and say whether or not it requires sort of a small amount of protection, a intermediate amount, or you want to go full. I'm not sure what the correct term would have to be, with basically full, all out, right? You go all out
Okay.
for, to make sure that you can increase the uptime on those wells.
I gotcha. Well, in like we spoke before, that you're in multiple regions around the world. So, did you have different problems in different regions that operators face?
They're probably more the same, more similar than they are different. But that's right. We operate across, mainly the United States, but in the Middle East and in South America as well. And because we deal with a problem that's ubiquitous throughout the oil field, it's just very much a case of whether or not there are existing solutions and how we can fit into that. Yeah.
Okay. And with corrosion and paraffin, like can you go into a little bit of detail about what happens and how that
Sure.
impacts?
Essentially, at Alta River, we have a unique technology that we developed a little while back, whereby what we do, and technically it's called thermally diffused alloys. So what we do is um, we bridge the gap between what you would consider more traditional sort of polymer coatings and other protective systems for downhole tubulars, and complete CRA packages. So corrosion resistant alloys of the sort of chrome variety and up. And the way it works is we take carbon steel tubing, and in our facility in Monterey, we will essentially put that steel tube through a process that forces gaseous zinc to create an alloy on the exposed parts of the steel. And that alloy itself is very effective at limiting and mitigating most, if not all, forms of corrosion you encounter in the oil field, from H2S and CO2 through high salinity levels and high water cuts and whatnot. In addition, that alloy is then protected by one of our IPCs that we develop in house as well.
Okay, all right, I gotcha. So that's how it prevents further corrosion or significant corrosion. I mean, is it completely eliminating the corrosion, or?
It's one of those things where it's never possible to completely end it forever. If there was a solution that lasted a hundred years, then we'd have done it by now.
That's true.
It's more a case of what fits and whether or not it's appropriate for the application. So in our case, in the more severely corrosive wells, that's where we tend to see the biggest differentiation between other alternatives and what we're able to provide. So usually it's a case of how much can you reasonably expect to have. If you have extreme corrosion and your tubulars are lasting 6 months, you're probably not looking for something that's going to last 6 years. Even at 2 or 3 years, you're already kind of in a much better place than you were before.
Okay. And with corrosion, you said that the corrosion is caused by sour gas, H2S, CO2, things of that nature.
Things of that nature. I mean, there's any number of combinations of those factors as well that can feature. Yeah.
Okay. And then with paraffin, what is that exactly?
So with paraffins, what we have is more of a unusual system for the United States, but one that's been used globally for a very long time, right? So what we do is, rather than preventing those paraffins from falling out of solution and essentially forming within that production fluid in the first place, we prevent it from sticking to the pipe. So basically, we prevent adhesion. And what you're doing there is, by coating your tubing, you are doing nothing to prevent that paraffin from presenting, but you are preventing it from sticking, which
Okay.
means that problem kind of moves further downstream, right? And like we always used to say, it's a lot easier to get a guy and a shovel to pick it out of a tank on the surface than it is to remove it from the tubulars that are downhole.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
yeah,
And paraffin, because paraffin is like a waxy substance,
yeah.
so that it prevents it from sticking.
Yeah, it prevents it from sticking and reducing your tubular ID and ultimately, nixing production. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so when Alteriver, like the flow is
Mm.
obviously like the most important aspect of what we're trying to achieve.
It's
Is
why we drill them in the first place,
That's why we're, yeah.
right?
So with what you offer, it's being able to get that efficient, high quality flow with minimal problems.
When it comes to paraffins in particular, yeah. So traditionally, paraffins would be something you solve by chemical means. That tends to be something that involves a continuous drip feed of chemical, but also dollars, right? So you're always just having to stay on top of it. Likewise, chemicals have downsides by virtue of being, chemicals. Here you are more approaching it from a fix it once and leave it for the duration of as long as you need it to function.
I see. And now, is there any maintenance over time that happens?
With the polymers that we have for paraffins, no. So they are installed together with the pipe. Well, they're applied to the pipe. They're installed during a completion, and at that point, all of the coated surfaces should be and are not able to. The paraffin isn't able to adhere to them. We've designed and we spent quite a long time working in some of the coldest parts of the world where paraffins are particularly problematic, designing those polymers specifically with the objective of limiting any adhesion of paraffin.
So that has been kind of a process of refinement over time and getting the right formula, I guess you would say.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, we do everything we have in house, our own R&D and our own development and our own manufacturing. And one of the things we've seen is that there are a number of factors that go into play for how that polymer or that surface interacts with paraffins and asphaltenes and all of these sticky substances. And certainly in terms of the surface roughness of that polymer, as well as the chemical composition of that polymer and how it interacts with on a I guess microscopic molecular level, that's been a process that's taken some time. And we've got to a point where we're fairly confident that there isn't a paraffin well that we can't help with, at least to some extent.
Okay, well, that's great. So I mean, it's really just such a value add to the industry overall. And like you said, with chemicals, they come with their own problems and limitations. So with what you offer, it's really being able to, like, from the beginning, the integrity of the flow, not fighting it, is
Yeah,
more or
set and
less.
forget.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And how is the business grown and
Mm.
developed over time? Like, as far as, like, your customer base, like,
Sure, sure.
what do you guys do to kind of, like, get this out there for people to know more about it?
So we started in the United States back in 2016, and it's been a process of, I guess, incremental growth. But as of about 2 years ago, we now have our own manufacturing here, well, just across the border, and that allows us to provide up to 1,000 tons of tubing a month, which allows us to cover a fair amount of ground. And we have a presence in pretty much all the major basins in the U.S. A lot of presence in South America now as well. So for us, the focus really is on connecting our solutions to the operators that have those issues and problems.
Yeah, and so it's, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. So, like, with what you offer, and who needs that kind of solution.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Well, we'd like to think so, and we've got a fair amount of, I guess, track record with operators and with certain areas where it makes sense that our product works, and it works for years. So.
And was that a hard sell in the beginning? I mean, getting them to try it.
I wouldn't like to call it a hard sell, but given that what we have with the thermally diffused zinc technology, it is unique and it is new, and it isn't something that you would have read as an engineer in a book on corrosion in the oil field, or studied at university, or indeed really likely to have seen elsewhere. So I think a lot of it has been a more organic process of, it works in these wells, and it's the biggest small industry in the world, right? So
Right.
so people talk, and it becomes very much a case of, well, how do you manage to get the kind of results that you get, and people looking over the fence, as it were, and that's always a good way, I find, to increase confidence in trying something that is new, unusual, but very effective.
And I think I've seen on LinkedIn pictures of you guys at different conferences and trade
Yes,
shows.
yeah, yeah.
Is that a great tool that you've used over time
So
to meet people?
I've always quite enjoyed going to some of these conferences. You meet a lot of people, and you get to hear a lot about what's going on in the industry, and new technology, amongst other things. So certainly, yeah. I mean, I think I've been to maybe 5 or 6 in the past year, and we have a lot of guys that do most of the ones in the Permian, and some of the more localized ones. Yeah.
Hmm. Is that did you say that's your biggest market? Is in the Permian?
At the moment, I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. We do a lot of work in the Bakken as well.
Are there any markets that you're currently trying to break into, or that you haven't been able to tap into yet?
A lot. It's always a case of how many hours do I have in the day.
Sure.
But certainly, we've had a lot of progress in the Middle East in the last 6 months or so. That's something that's taken a long time, and when you're dealing with national oil companies, it can be a little bit more challenging, and a little bit more of a just drawn out process. But
Okay. Yeah.
we've got a certain presence there now as well.
Yeah, I would imagine that could be challenging, navigating internationally and applying what you have in one region to another, and logistics also, because you're manufacturing warehouses in Monterey.
Our manufacturing facilities in Monterey, yeah, yeah, but we have warehouses across the world, really. So these days, shipping isn't as expensive as it could be, so it does work fairly well for us.
Okay, so there's no real challenges there as far as shipping out of Monterey to the warehouses that you have in different
Not really,
regions.
not really. I mean, we've been doing it for a few years, and we've learned to navigate all the various pitfalls and so on.
Is there any one region that you've enjoyed working in more than any other?
Well, that's a dangerous question.
I suppose it could
Yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I've enjoyed quite a lot of different places in my time. I think I've always thought very fondly on my time in Southeast Asia, where I spent a number of years. That was very different to other places, and it's always very it's always very refreshing to see how things work in other places. Um, I'm, very very much I started my career and grew as an oil man in the United Kingdom and
Okay.
out of the North Sea. So we haven't had much work there recently, but that's always somewhere that you look back and think it used to be a little livelier than it is now, but anything's possible.
Oh, interesting. And like with all the different oil and gas regions, like do they operate similarly? Are there a lot of differences?
I think it's probably more similar than different in most cases. I mean, an oil well's an oil well. Sure, there's various nuances and operational procedures that vary from place to place, but I wouldn't say that it's so different to be challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, because I mean, I guess like the basic function of it all is going to be pretty similar.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the rock's broadly the same. The drilling's broadly the same. Yeah, the metal that goes in there is broadly the same. It's
Sure.
not. Nobody's reinventing the wheel.
Right.
At least not that I've seen. Obviously, the difference between a high temperature, high pressure offshore well in the Gulf of Thailand is very different to a small, low cost, well somewhere in the Rockies. But at its essence, I find them to be very similar rather than extremely different.
Sure. And you said that you began in the United Kingdom at the North Sea.
Yeah.
How did you make your way to the States?
So I've only been here for a few years. It's still growing on me. um, but I spent a long time in the North Sea, in the drilling side of things rather than production, and then I did a stint in Australia, down in Adelaide, which was interesting. Very far away from everywhere, but great place. I'm a huge fan of Australia. Best wine in the world for my money.
Okay.
Um, and then Southeast Asia, like I said, I mean, spent some time in Malaysia, and I mean that's a whole different world out there, especially in terms of the number of countries and operators working out there. Um, and then eventually I found my way through the Middle East and now to the United States.
Wow. So, I mean, like really like hitting the US like as your last stop. Like you've been all over because I've interviewed people that have, worked in the Middle East or they've worked in other areas, but I don't think I've ever talked to anyone that like the US was their last
Final protocol.
yeah. No. And so
Yeah.
like you've seen so much and then coming to the US.
Sure. I mean, there are obviously, different pathways and whatnot. I think I always knew that I would find my way to Houston or the uh, the oil patch in the U.S. eventually. So, and I mean, it's such a big industry here, right? Where it's fairly dominant, so it makes sense to at least feature in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Mm.
So there's smaller markets in
I don't
these
think there are any bigger markets,
no.
but it's certainly in that sort of category. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you'd kind of outgrown maybe some of those regions and those experiences. You were ready to come to the U.S. market.
That's probably fair. That's probably fair. Plus, I mean, we obviously with Alteriver, we're based in the U.S. We're based out of Houston, so it makes sense to be where it's all at.
Hmm. So have you adjusted? You said it's take maybe a little bit of an acquired taste to be here. Are
Oh
you
no, I
enjoying
like
it?
it. I've been to Houston a lot of times and to Texas. So I've always been fond of the place, and I think it aligns a lot with the kind of things I like. I always say there's very few places that you get a bit of steak.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I've been, despite growing up in Europe, I've been shooting since I was a little boy. So that there are few places that are quite as conducive to that kind of overall lifestyle. So I enjoy it here a lot. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, that
Plus,
worked out.
despite the fact that a lot of people complain about the heat and humidity, 3 years in the jungles of Malaysia and I'm fine with the heat and humidity.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, yeah. Just add even more mosquitoes and that's
Yeah.
nothing.
Well, yeah, and like yeah, definitely it's like more you have more luxury and amenities in Houston.
A lot more, yeah, for sure. No, Houston's a great place, and I mean, I don't think there's anything I can think of that you couldn't find in Houston.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And that seems like a like after you've I mean just worked around the world for so long, that seems like a good place to settle in because there's a lot of different demographics in Houston.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that kind of international feel is very oil and gas as well. I mean, you normally, if you go offshore, you probably find 200 people there, and I don't know, 20 or 30 different nationalities, right? Um,
Wow. Yeah. So with being with Alta River and getting into the different products and having the solutions for for these
Hmm.
operators. Has that been challenging at all? Or I mean, that seems like that would be like pretty natural for you to be in this role.
Yeah, so I find the production side of things a lot more chilled than the drilling side of things. And I think, as you get a little older, you don't really want to do the kind of hectic schedules that drilling sometimes necessitated of me in my 20s when it was fun. Now I think it would be a lot less fun.
Yeah,
Plus, I think my wife would be a little bit less inclined to be like, yeah, 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 go away for 3 weeks. That's fine. Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And certainly, once you get settled in a place and in a certain environment, it gets a little bit more straightforward. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's interesting. Like I said, because I haven't really had that much like hands-on experience with production and drilling, and so I always find it um, valuable with what I do with my show to learn more about the
Hmm.
industry, the ins and outs of how it works, and really understanding the process because that's I mean that's how everything else is possible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, exactly. It goes sequentially, right? You start off by making some hole, and then you fill it with stuff, and eventually you get something out. That's kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
We're just
yeah.
trying to make that process a little cheaper and a little easier.
Yeah, and you have specific products
Mm.
for that as well that I was reading about. The
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, we're not the largest company in the world, so we only have a handful of products that we make. But usually they are tailored to specifically what those well conditions are, right? And again, they'll depend on what you actually need. If you can do the job in a 20-year-old Ford pickup truck, why do you need the brand new Mercedes or whatever it may
oh,
be?
very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. And so just really tailoring it to the solution that's needed depending on the region and depending what's going on.
Yeah, and depending as well on not just the well conditions, but also the operator's philosophy, right? So there's different approaches there. But certainly, what we try and do, by virtue of being a smaller and more nimble company, is to react and adjust to what's actually required of us, rather than being more of a this is what we do and just that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And as far as like environmentally,
Mm.
is this a better I mean option? I'm assuming obviously more than a chemical solution, but
Sure. That's an interesting point. It's something that we've always been very cognizant of. Is that if you're able to extend the basically mean time between failure on your tubulars, that tends to result in less steel usage. And steel itself is quite a energy intensive product, right? So in terms of the footprint that you leave when you have to use new steel. Um, for the chemicals, it's also a very good point because when you get to paraffin wells and paraffin problems, a lot of the time you're always chasing your own tails. You're always having to react to what those well conditions are, right? And be that having to do various scraping runs and hot oiling and whatnot, and all of that tends to also accumulate a carbon footprint, if you will, over a period of time. And what you then tend to do, what you can do, is you can work out a quantity of carbon footprint that you have associated per barrel produced, right? And a lot of the time, by simply putting a little bit more thought into the design up front with things like polymer protected systems, you're able to reduce that as well.
okay. All right. I like that. That's like I can see where longevity wise that it's a great investment
Yeah, yeah,
for the
yeah.
operator. Are there any particularly challenging situations that you've been in or that you guys have faced with what you're doing?
It depends what you mean by challenging. I mean, in terms of challenging wells, or in terms of challenging.
Just I guess
Uh,
challenging situations, and I mean, like you said, because
mm,
you're a nimble company, you're smaller,
sure,
you
sure,
can react to the needs.
of
Is
course.
anything unusual ever happen where you've had to
I think
make
most of our
adjustments?
more frustrating challenges tend to revolve around administrative things as opposed to technical things, right?
Okay.
So things involving import and export, things involving, you know, paperwork or approvals and various sort of, especially working in certain regions of the world, it can be a lot more challenging to just get things from A to B to C. From a technical standpoint, I think we tend to be very straightforward about what we can do and we can't do. So if we feel that there isn't an overlap between what we can do and what's required, then we're not going to sit around and try and kind of force a solution onto
Mm,
the wrong problem or the wrong well or the wrong application. Yeah.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And with like you said, 2016
Hmm.
was when you guys started
That's right. Yeah. Well, here in the U.S.
in the
Globally,
U.S.
I think 2007 was our
Okay.
real kind of beginning.
So everything is kind of in stride now. There's been a lot of company growth and being in different markets.
Yeah, I mean, we're very much still in the growth phase, and for us, a lot of it is about exposure to new customers, and I think the ability and even just being given the opportunity to discuss and educate, because what we do doesn't have an exact equivalent at all. A lot of the time, it's a case of I need to have the possibility to explain, to demonstrate, and then to hopefully try it.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. When
Mm.
something's new, like that technology or innovation, it's
Mm.
like just trying to get someone to understand what it is and what the value is and
That's right. That's right.
to
It was
apply it.
it was more challenging earlier when nobody wanted to be the first to stick their head above the parapet. But now it's a little bit more straightforward. We have a lot more experience and a lot more ability to demonstrate track record than we did 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with where we are in the industry too, it's like we're always trying to become more environmentally conscious
Hmm.
and obviously, you want production to, be at maximum potential
Sure.
and having also like all of these different kinds of outlets like social media, podcasting, and I mean, and going to the conferences,
Hmm.
like you say, that gives you a chance to showcase and tell a little bit about like what it is you offer, and
Yeah.
and people are, I think, more open minded now.
Absolutely. And talking about the idea of becoming more, cognizant of our environmental impact and how we manage that. One of the things that we're currently working diligently towards is exploring how we can contribute to the carbon capture and storage side of things. Right, this whole great unknown but inevitable part of where we move in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And for us, a lot of the time, it's a case of again, how do we there's always an expensive way to do something, but if you want to be a little bit more efficient and a little bit more, I guess, tailored specifically for what you need and not anything more, that's where we're trying to see how we fit into that area as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So looking into the future, would you say that's the track that you're on?
At least partly, yeah. So we've got our own team of very much smarter than I guys and girls sitting around doing research and R&D and trying to perfect what we do all the time, and they'll be looking at various avenues, and certainly carbon capture is one of those. Yeah.
Are there any success stories that you've had from operators that have
Yeah, I mean it's loads. I mean there are some that are much more, I think, clear cut and entertaining, right? And I mean, for me, my best success stories are ones where, unfortunately, the customer forgets all about us because there are no problems to deal with, right? So,
right?
my favorite feedback is always, we used to have to deal with this well every 6 months. We forgot it even exists, or ever had a problem in it before.
Mm,
And that's when you kind of get that, step change improvement. We're not going from 6 months to 7 or 8. We're going for years and years. And we see it sometimes when, especially in the last few years, with a lot of mergers and acquisitions and assets moving around and companies buying each other and whatnot, when you would have somebody calling us because they've pulled a well that's they bored with our pipe in it and wanted to know how is it that it's still there
oh
and
yeah.
it still looks so essentially new and shiny. It's like, well, sit down, let me let me explain what we do. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's always a very positive sort of experience for us.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, exactly. That's what I meant is
Mm.
that the success is they're not having any problems, so
Mm.
it's really easy to not even like have it at top of mind
That's right. Yeah.
because you don't have issues. But having something like that,
Mhm.
where it's like they're physically able to see the pipe
Mhm.
after so long,
Yeah.
it's like that's your proof right there. Like that's a demonstration after so many years
Yeah.
of being able to see the effectiveness.
Exactly. And it's not as rock and roll as something you can see straight away,
Sure.
but that kind of reassurance of now that I've got the Alteriver Z-ply system, I don't have to think about it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you found that it's easier to sell and to like get new customers like as time has gone on and that you guys have become more well known and had more success in the industry?
100%. Because I can now lean on a lot of track record and a lot of experience and a lot of very known problematic areas. It's not there are certain patterns that exist in terms of corrosion as to which kind of wells are likely to be more corrosive, and usually you have a pretty good idea of who else is dealing with the same problem. So
Mm,
if you're suddenly seeing, or you're sitting and having dinner with someone, or it's a fairly open discussion, and at that point you can kind of use that as a way to demonstrate. A lot of the time, especially when it comes to corrosion, you do a lot of testing in the laboratory to show certain conditions, fit certain results, and that's great. We do all of that as well. But nonetheless, for us, the best possible proof of concept and test, if you will, is the oil well, right? If you run it and it sits for as long as you need it to without any holes in tubing and the like, that's better than any amount of lab testing that you can do.
sure.
That
Yeah.
takes a few years to build up, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I mean that could be that has its own challenges
Hmm.
because of the like you said it takes a while for
Yeah, it takes a while to really see the change, but we do have, not in the United States, we have a national oil company that we've worked with for probably close to 15 years, and after a number of years, they switched a lot of their wells over to our tubing, and after many years, again, it probably took close to 10 years for them to do a large scale study across the entire asset base for them, and the reason they did it is because they noticed a constant downward trend in their tubular costs. And eventually they did share with us that it was around about 40% across their entire organization that their tubular costs had dropped. And the only thing they can really attribute it to is the increased longevity in the tubulars that they're using, which are coated with our systems.
oh wow. And
Yeah.
that you said that was over a 10-year
There was
period?
about a 10-year period because it takes a long time to see these kind of
Mm-hmm.
field wide and asset wide trends, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's that reduction in steel use that we're talking about again, right? It doesn't factor into the other aspects of optimizing production, right? Fewer workovers and fewer gaps in between. But purely in terms of tubular costs, that's what we have in terms of very large scale studies. Yeah.
What's that process like if someone were to change their
Hmm.
tubing system? Is that a I don't know that like how all of that works like for them to
Sure.
change out
Hmm.
their tubing system if they wanted to use your product.
It's for us it's very straightforward because it doesn't actually fundamentally change anything that they're doing, right? So they'll be using EU8 round connections. We simply take the same carbon steel tubing that they're using now, and we put it through our process through essentially our coding system, and it's running the same way. So that change out, I talk about it as this grand change out from system to system. Realistically, it's just a case of you still using the same carbon steel tubulars that you would before, with all the advantages and convenience and whatnot of that, just with this additional protection system on it. And it doesn't really change the way you run it, the way you handle it, the way you store it. I mean, it can sit out in the yard for years and it won't really change.
Wow. So I mean it's pretty resilient and withstands like all of the elements and conditions.
That's what it's designed to do, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, if it can sit in an oil well for years and years, it can sit in the Houston humidity
That's
for
fair.
a little while, yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
sun's not going to hurt it.
No, no. No, it should be fine.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, you guys have had great growth over the
Mm.
years and success, and it sounds like it's just expanded. And like you said, still in the growth phase, but the product speaks for itself, and the confidence that you've had in past customers, like being able to
Hmm.
demonstrate the quality.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, we're still very much in the growth phase, and we have grand plans in the next sort of 3 to 5 years. But for the time being, yeah, we're here to stay.
Well, that's great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today, Maxim, and sharing everything about Alta River and providing so much education about what you offer.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been interesting, and definitely should be coming back at some point, I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Thank you again, and thank you everyone for watching Power the Permian. We'll see you next time.